The next step I want to do is extract a little bit of the data. And so far, if we take a look at our portfolio really, we'll notice that I'm using that portfolio item, I've exposed it. Now, the only place where it would make sense for me to expose that item is if we really had some sort of level of customization, or maybe we would want to let the user decide, or whoever's using this portfolio, to put different type of things and not only portfolio items. But in our case, we really only want to have portfolio items inside of our portfolio. So one way we could do that is literally just going to that portfolio item and not making it exposed, and instead of that, sending in the information as data, which is exactly what we'll do. So let's go ahead and create a new variable name, and I'm going to call this our portfolio model. And that's because it's going to be our model data, which is a term that comes from MVC, which we'll talk about briefly shortly. Really, generally speaking, everything we're working with in our components of React are the view in a model view control. The idea is it's a design pattern that says, let's separate between our model, our view, and our controllers, and have them completely separate so we could control the flow of information more better. Now, obviously, in the state of a component by nature is the place where all of the view related things aggregate to. So then our model information gets there, our process controller information gets to our component, and our component in essence could be a controller as well. Although in the case of React, we really try to make our views not controllers, just something that passes through information, where we have our controllers externally. But let's go ahead and create our view, and what I'm going to do, our model, and what I want to do is I'm going to create here just like a reference to those images. And you know what, I already pre-created, so let me just go ahead and I'm just going to copy those variables. And what I did was I literally just copied from that information, I copied our image, and I just added random links, by the way, to my sites, to Pact, and also to one of my oldest sites, which you're welcome to check out, which I created maybe 20 years ago almost already, and I don't even know if I've updated maybe 15 years ago last time, but it's kind of cool to have this archaic version of my site that I'm maintaining by not letting the server die out. And so if you go to the cabin link, then you'll see our cabin link there. So with that said, I've created our module, and literally all it is an array with objects that contain our data. Now what I'm going to do next is, for my portfolio, I'm going to send in a variable, but this time around I'm going to literally send it in the whole object instead of sending in just a string or just some sort of a primitive value. So I could send in also objects. We haven't done it so far, but I definitely could. Now, once I've changed that, let's go into our portfolio, because we're going to have to change things around inside of our portfolio. First of all, we're not going to be rendering our children anymore. Instead of that, we're going to have to process that information that is coming in inside of our basically inside of our props.data. So to do that, I'm going to create a variable. I'm going to call it children, and I'm going to make it as an array. And I want to show you a completely new thing to ES6, where I could do a for loop, and I could literally go ahead and for this item, I want to go out of this props.data. Beautiful. Now what I've just done here in ES6 is literally cycled through each of the data entries with the name of item. And now that I've done that, I could go into my children and push one child at a time, and I could go ahead here and push here a portfolio item, sending in the data. So let's just send in this item in and close that, and that will be our children. Now, before I even render this, instead of rendering children, I'm going to go ahead and render the children variable instead of the local variable that I've created. But also, let's go ahead into our portfolio item and change the logic now that we have a data being sent instead of an image being sent. So if we go into our portfolio item, I'm going to go and search for wherever I'm actually referring to it. So it's props.data.image. And I could go ahead also in our E4X area, in our JSX more accurately, and I could go inside here and search for 4444, our link, which is right here. And I could just delete that string and replace it with our data.link. And there we go. We connected all the dots, I believe. All that's left for us to do is to test it out. And if we go back into our browser and refresh, we'll see that first of all, we have here a small error, but all of our content is being rendered out just as it was previously. Now, the one thing that I want to do to sort it out, by the way, it's taking us to the external links now, so our fade outs won't work anymore. They'll take us into those sites. So what I want to do is I want to fix this error of the key, which is basically it's a warning that's telling me because I'm adding dynamically elements, I need to put inside a key and give them a unique name within the flow of that item. So within our portfolio, it needs to have a unique key. So in our case, I could take our children's length really, and I could use that as some sort of a unique key. So I'm just going to go ahead here and ask for the children length because each one will be different. And I know that that's the only stuff that are being sent in, so that should resolve the issue of our children having the same key. I'm using undefined, which is not good. Length, there we go. And that should sort it out, and now we shouldn't get that error anymore. And that's it. That's basically OTA. We've just learned in E4X how to use these really cool new for loops. And we've also seen how to make our content even more dynamic by using our external model for our portfolio component. In this lecture, we took our first steps into extracting our model data out of our component. In the next lecture, we'll continue down the path as we explore the different types of variable definitions that exist in ES6, which are var, let, and const.